Okay, so this is our presentation for the open source contribution. Um, an overview, what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking an overview of the open source project, and then more specifically about our contribution, and then lessons learned. So our open source project is called OWASP Threat Dragon. So it's a free open source threat modeling tool created by OWASP, and it's used by developers, security engineers, and organizations to identify and mitigate security threats in their software systems before they become vulnerabilities. Threat Dragon provides a diagramming interface where users can visually map out processes, data flows, trust boundaries, and external systems. Once a system is modeled, the tool automatically analyzes the diagram and suggests potential security threats, such as data leaks, spoofing, tampering, or improper access control. This helps teams understand their system's risk exposure early in the design phase. And the tool also supports detailed threat descriptions, mitigation steps, and risk scoring so that teams can track security issues throughout the development lifecycle. And it stores threat models in a structured JSON format, making them portable and version controllable. So overall, OWASP Threat Dragon helps teams design safer systems by making threat modeling accessible, collaborative, and integrated into a modern development workflow. And our contribution specifically focused on enhancing how the tool handles trust boundaries, which are key components for identifying when sensitive data crosses into less secure environments.
Yes. Oh, our contribution was based off of the Threat Dragon issue number 1350, which is Trust Boundary Crossing Data Flow for JSON files. And the inclusion of this feature would add the elements contained within trust boundaries and the data flows that cross those boundaries to the JSON file that is created when the Threat Dragon model is saved. So it's visible in both text version and the model version. It would allow distinguishing where trust boundaries are and what data crosses them from the JSON file alone without having to load it onto Threat Dragon to view the model. And these trust boundaries are important to know because they determine the level of trust given to the elements involved in an application. And you only want to trust data from processes that run inside the boundary, like security checks, and don't send secret information to those outside of it. This is something very important for secure computing, and you want to make sure you know what your trust boundaries are so you know what you can trust and where your data is going. Next slide, please. And here is an example of what our contribution did. Here is an example model from the Threat Dragon site that we just made, or I made as a example. So we just have data flowing across the trust boundary, which is this dotted box line here. So before, the JSON file would have for the trust boundary just the ID, the type that's a box, and then just some basic booleans. But now after what we added, we have an array for the contained elements within the trust boundary box, and you see it has two element IDs here, which correspond to the store and the process in the picture. And then we also have the crossing flows of the boundary box, which are the two data flows that go from the store to the actor. We also made slight changes to the data flow element, not just the boundary boxes one, because then you can see from the flow what trust boundary IDs it passes. So this is one of the two data flows that goes across the trust boundary, and you can see here that the ID of the trust boundary ID matches the one of this box up here, and that the ID of this data flow is one of the ones in crossing flows. So yeah, that's what our contribution does. Dasha, you're muted.
Thank you so much for that. I just going on. Hopefully, again, I'm received well orally. So we're going to talk about some of the lessons that we learned while doing this project. I think some things that's very important is to um, have like effective collaboration and communication amongst the team. And I think what we did was to ensure that each of us had clear parts of this open source project that we're going to contribute to. The one that mostly one had to wait on the other, but it was very good to effectively communicate when that's done. Also, I found it prevalent to utilize the documentation and the guidelines on the how to contribute. I think this has like a lot of effective information to be able to be successful and creating like a meaningful contribution to the open source project. Um, Within the project, we learned more about trust boundaries and have like overall a better technical understanding of the project's paths. And then with that, we had to create a way to have different information shown for those who don't have like access to it without the design still being insecure. So a couple more lessons is that, and this is probably like our hardest lesson, is that when you have an issue you want to do, grab it because it may not be available later when you're ready to start on it. Um, and one good lesson I learned was to be patient. I don't really have a lot of skills. The projects, it is in JavaScript with some Vue. I've never seen Vue before, so it was it takes some time to learn. So just know that all contributions for open source projects may require, you to touch language that you never touched before. And then also with that, I've learned that we should contribute to more projects. It was very rewarding to be able to do something like this. So um, hopefully we'll all continue to contribute to open source projects in the future. Um, yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to us via email. Thank you.